Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to the Checkerboard Kitchen. Today we're going to talk about popcorn makers. In front of you, you'll see a Stir Crazy West Bend popcorn machine, model number 82505. This is one of the current offerings from West Bend. You're probably more used to seeing the dome type of popcorn makers, and here's a lid from one. And the reason I'm using this new one is the previous one I purchased from them um, went defective really quick, and they said they would give me a discount on a new one rather than giving me a replacement because warranties on these things don't last very long. So they sent me this new one, which I've had, I'd say for a couple of years now. I much prefer the old dome type. The first one I owned, I had for 15 years, and that was through a lot of popcorn making. The new ones are a lesson in planned obsolescence. They won't last. They won't last very long if you make a lot of popcorn. Um, which brings me to the point of this video. The, this popcorn maker already had a problem, and the problem is the the problem is that the um, little knob they put here. Well, let me take it off here to use to remove the stirrer from the unit is made of plastic. And after multiple heatings and cooling cycles from making um, probably hundreds of batches of popcorn, this thing is going to fail. And in my case, it failed by the threads becoming weak, and if I turn it a little bit too much, it'll start stripping. Now that's not a good thing because if it strips, then it will loosen up as it moves, and eventually the stirring stick doesn't work effectively. So I went online, said, well, maybe they sell replacement knobs. Sure, they sell a replacement knob for like $5, but they want like $8 for shipping and handling. So I'm going, really? There must be a better way. And there is. So what I did was I took this knob, went down to my local hardware store, and you've probably seen it. They have a rack of nuts and bolts on a display, and you can use it to find out what thread size the nut or bolt you're looking for is. So I ended up putting this on, and it turns out that for this unit anyway, the bolt is a 6 by 1 millimeter bolt. So I said, okay, well, what do I need to do to replace it? Well, obviously, I'm not going to find a knob this big at a local hardware store, but um, instead, I did find a nice 6 millimeter by 1 wing nut. So I had a couple of washers, put a flat washer on, put a split, let's see, you can see that here, a split ring lock washer, spin it on, don't have to tighten it too much, and there you go. It actually locks down tighter than the original and works just fine. So for about $1.25 and a trip to the hardware store, I replaced this knob with a suitable replacement, and it works just fine. All right, let's talk a little bit about popcorn for these machines. I I used to have a part-time job in a movie theater, which meant I had all the free popcorn I wanted, all the free movies I wanted, and all the free soft drinks I wanted. So I got hooked on popcorn, and it took me a long time. This was back in the late '70s. It took me a long time to be able to try to find the same type of ingredients that um, that the theater popcorn makers used, and the only way to purchase it back then was in these huge, giant theater-sized containers, like a 35-pound sack of corn, a 30-pound tin of coconut oil, and seasoning salt. The seasoning salt back then was available in a container like this, brand name Flavorcol, and this is a quart-sized container. And I've had this container of salt for probably 30 years. you will never run out of this salt. It's still half full of that fine yellow popcorn type of salt. But since then, the market has caught up with demand, and now they offer these prepackaged containers of popcorn. You can get them on Amazon, or even Home Depot, or yeah, even Home Depot sells them now through their online catalog. They may not have them in the store, and they're marketed by the kettle size, the 6-ounce kettle or 4-ounce kettle. That doesn't refer to the weight of the kettle. It refers to the amount of corn that the kettle can easily process. Now, it turns out I had a bunch of 6-ounce left over from my dome-shaped popcorn machine, and that worked fine for that. But this machine didn't. 6 ounces was too much, and what it would do is it would overflow the lid, and it would pack the corn down and not make it as light and fluffy. So I found that dropping down to a 4-ounce size of popcorn quantity was a better choice. Now, there's a couple of things I've learned over the years. One, this package, for instance, contains, you can see the coconut / whatever else palm oil they put in here, which gives it that nice yellow color and a richer taste, and is full of things that are not good for you, but it really makes it taste good. They, of course, give you the popcorn, and they have a little, see in the back a little better, and a little packet of the seasoning salt. So that means I don't have to dig into my long-term 30-year stash of popcorn salt. Normally the ingredients are designed, or this package is designed for this kettle type of popcorn maker, which if I had room I would have one, though they are a pain to clean up. But they add to the ambiance of the popcorn experience. Now, what the biggest mistake people make is they'll take this entire container and dump it in to one of these kettles, and salt and all, and that just leads to a very, very big mess. I don't recommend doing it that way. I've come up with a different way that helps increase the lifetime of the kettle, because the salt can get very, very reactive, and even just using it, you'll see that some of the Teflon here has scraped off of this for normal use. If you use salt, it's going to scrape off a lot faster. Plus, the salt ends up sticking to the bottom of the kettle and does not mix well with the popcorn as it's popping. The theater style kettles are a little different. They make hundreds and hundreds of batches of popcorn a day, so the fact that there's a little salt left from the previous one will just get mixed in with the next batch, and it doesn't make any difference. But if you're going to do it at home, I wouldn't suggest doing it this way. And I will demonstrate the way I do it, and it's a little more involved, and as some people like to say, it's quite a process, but it does make everything a lot easier to clean up afterwards. Basically, the alternate salt method involves cooking the popcorn normally with just oil and popcorn, and then transferring the freshly popped popcorn to a large bowl. In this case, I have a nice wooden salad bowl, which works fine for the amount of popcorn I'm making. Once it's in here, I then sprinkle in the salt, and then in my case, it's convenient. I have the other dome from the old popcorn maker, and I just cover it up, and then I toss the popcorn in here. Sometimes we have popcorn days at the office, but instead of taking all of my bowls in, what I do is I take a paper grocery bag, the ones you have to pay 5 cents for now, and I take that in, transfer the contents of the popper into that bag, sprinkle salt on, and toss it in the bag. Makes for easier cleanup. The salt is a big pain to clean up off of the kettle, as I mentioned. So let's make a batch and see what happens. If you live in cold climates, you'll sometimes this oil will solidify. It solidifies at rather low, rather high temperature, and somewhere in the low 70s. So if your house is a little cooler than that, this is going to get solid, and it's going to be hard to get out of this plastic container. So what I do is I end up cutting the bag, pouring off the popcorn, then putting the oil, the rest of the bag, into the microwave and cooking it for about 30 seconds, and it will warm up the oil slightly enough to turn it into liquid. But what you want to do always is preheat your kettle. If you add corn oil to your kettle while it's cold, the popcorn won't pop as full, because part of the heating process has to warm up the popcorn from room temperature up to the popping temperature. And as it's doing that, some of the extra liquid that's in the popcorn that makes it pop is going to be released, and you won't get as good a yield. So heat up your mixture first, and you can add your oil. You can add your oil just about any time, because that needs to get up to temperature as well. So just cut off the, get that off of my cloth here. In fact, I think I removed the cloth from underneath the popcorn maker so we don't get any oil. This oil is very, very colorful and difficult to get out of things once it stains it. So get out the oil out of there. Okay, through the magic of editing, I've removed the cloth. And the kettle is a little warmer now. So we'll cut off the all right. These things can get kind of noisy sometimes, and you will notice. Let me get the lid here. Get a squeaky sound because the corn is being dragged across the bottom of the kettle, and it gets stuck. You get stuck underneath the metal bar sometimes. Nothing to worry about. Sometimes it reverses, which is actually not a bad thing. All right, so we'll go through the speed up process until it starts popping. Okay, the corn is starting to pop. And once it starts, it won't take very long. And just wait till the corn doesn't pop after 3 or 4 seconds. Then, like most of them are done, turn it off, and immediately I turn it over so the popcorn that's on the bottom won't burn, and I remove the kettle. Okay, let's unplug it here. All right, so as you can see, the amount of popcorn just barely fills the bowl. If we use a 6-ounce size of popcorn, it's going to overflow and the lid would pop off and it'd be all packed out. This is nice and fluffy, which is what you want. All right, so what I do is I transfer the popcorn to a bowl. You notice this bowl is a little bit too small. I just happen to have the other bowl from the previous popcorn maker. If you want to use a dome lid of something to toss it, you can. It's kind of difficult to do without a lid. It's a little messier. Then I do is I sprinkle in some of the salt. Usually do about half at a time. And then I hold down the lid on the top. Just give it a few tosses and turns. Then add the rest of the salt. disperse it amongst the kernels a little better. And there we go. And enough for two, usually around here anyway. We're watching a movie. We'll share one of these easily. Now a little bit about cleanup. The lid, I'll put in the dishwasher. Just make sure that you don't have the heat drying setting on or the super hot setting. But that's a lot easier than trying to wash it by hand. If you put it in the dishwasher, this will come up crystal clean every time. And cleanup of the kettle is done simply with a paper towel. It's a little bit too hot to handle. Just wipe it off. There's another little trick I learned. These kettles, if you look at the kettle here, the inside, the actual heating, the part that gets heated is separated from the outside. But what happens, some of the oil will drip down into the gap here. And after a number of poppings, it can smoke more and it smells kind of rancid. So what I do is, after I'm done popping, I'll balance the popcorn maker up on its side so that the oil, you can always see some happen. Oops. So the oil will drain off while it's still hot down onto the paper towel. And I'm not going to hold it by hand, but I just balance it against the wall or something. I'll do that. Just stand it right there, come back in a half an hour, and most of the oil that was on there will be drained off, and it won't have as much residue, and it'll make the popcorn machine last longer. So there you go. My knowledge of popcorn transferred to you free of charge. Yummy. Now we just need to go find a movie. Enjoy.